So a lot of people think that they're stuck because they haven't found the right path in life.
Yeah.
But sometimes they feel stuck because they're not financially free to make different choices. So I wonder, what do you think of why people stay in lives they outgrown and because of financial fear?
I think a lot of it is your comfort zone as well. So, for example, people stay in jobs, it's what they're used to, it's their comfort zone. They know it's giving them that stability, but it might be stopping them chasing a career that they would have loved to have gone for, but also knowing that that particular job or what they're doing right now pays the bills, pays for your life right now. It's what they need. It's the kind of, I would call it the security blanket that's still there, that I know I can definitely relate to that. For example, like the content creation is a complete new world for me. However, I'm not ready to give my 9 to 5 yet, because that does give me my kind of financial freedom, certain things. But there's that fear of constantly the unknown. It's the unknown that you're not wanting to. I'm too scared to go explore that. And I know many people are probably in that position where when it comes to money and fear, it all plays a part together. Because, for example, relationships, there are plenty of people out there that are unfortunately in unhappy relationships because, for example, they've got kids involved, they've got mortgages to pay for. And if you think about it, incomes and financial stability matters. But yet they might be in relationships where they're unhappy, but they know that the fear of tearing that relationship apart could have such a big impact on things like finances or what that means for the future. It's the unknown. And having to face that all by yourself could be, again, very scary thing to do. And I think a lot of that holds people back. So there might be situations, like I said, relationships you've outgrown, careers you've outgrown. It could be even a study path you've outgrown. I know plenty of people that have continued education and thought that was a great investment, but they've gone so far in and they're too scared to pivot because it'll have a financial implication on things that they were hoping to do with that, whether it's education or career path they were going to go into. But because in their mindset and what they've been taught, it's the unknown and that fear around it. They're not willing to explore and take risks. And I've seen so many people hold back because of that.
Yeah, I would echo on everything that you're saying. And as you said, especially about the 9 to 5 job, because, we've all been there in terms of working 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I feel like earlier in my 20s, I was working 9 to 5 jobs, but I was always chasing more money. I was chasing a better job position. I was always striving for more and more and more. And the more, it was never seemed to be enough. So the more I was achieving, the more money I was making, the more unhappy I was. And then there came a moment in my life where I had to stop and question myself. Do I feel satisfied the way I live? Is the 9 to 5 giving me enough freedom to do whatever I want, or is it taking me apart from that, Because I felt like instead of the 9 to 5 taking me closer to what I actually wanted to do in my life, it was just taking me apart. And at some point I just woke up and I told myself, I don't know how long I can do that. And this is how I've started doing other creative things that can help me potentially as a side hustle to achieve that in the long term. And yourself, you also started helping individuals to become financially free and build financial wealth, which is very important to be able to achieve something, and do something different than 9 to 5. Because if you think about the psychology of 9 to 5 is you go to work Monday to Friday, you have some couple of hours spare in the evening, some weekends. You can afford to go on a few holidays, and probably someone that's watching now could say, well, how can I go on holidays, for example, if I don't have a job that pays for that? But I feel like this is the misunderstanding of how you can make money, because I feel like the old mentality of I need to work hard, for us to have food on the table. And you would probably agree our parents and grandparents were living like that. And now things have changed. People no longer want to do any jobs just for the sake of doing it to make money. Now people are more questioning, do what I do now as a day-to-day makes me fulfill? Because if it's a no, the money are not enough as a byproduct of what I'm doing day-to-day. So in your opinion, how much of feeling trapped is actually a money problem and how much is a mindset?
I think for something like that, you have to first try and figure out your behavior and your relationship with money and try to understand your spending habits. I think a lot of people don't really want to face that. And this sounds like a very basic thing to do, but you do have to sit there and do some kind of analysis on what you're spending on, why you're spending on these things. And some people try to avoid that because they don't actually want to face the issues or underlying, I don't want to call it underlying conditional money habits, but you want to understand why you behave the way you do when it comes to money and your choices and the choices you're making. Are you doing it because you're trying to fill a gap in your life? Is there something quite missing? Is it that you're constantly looking for some kind of instant dopamine kind of hit that you're constantly looking for? Because we're living in a world that's all about instant gratification with everything, absolutely everything, to social media, to getting answers from AI, to dating apps. Everything's very instant. So I think we're living in that sort of world at the moment. So I think trying to first understand, why are you spending the way you do? Is it related to some kind of childhood, the way something you saw? Which is, I think, a lot of how people probably don't quite always figure out, is that that's why they behave with money the way they do. In terms of it, whether it's a money problem or not. Now, I know for a fact that money, yes, it can bring you some kind of happiness. But if there is a possibility you could still be making the money and you still feel trapped because you're still not happy. It means you haven't got the work-life balance there. You're not making connections with people that are very, very important for your well-being. Your well-being's not quite there. You could be making more money and you could still feel trapped. So I don't think sometimes necessarily we may think that money is the answer to a lot of things, that I'll make more money, it will bring me happiness. But actually, you're probably just trying to plug a gap where there's actually other things that you probably want to do to fulfill that. And it's really trying to explore what brings me calmness, what brings me peace, what actually brings me happiness. Is that money actually really making me happy? Or actually, I've made all this money, but I still feel trapped. I still don't feel like I've got the fulfillment that I'm looking for in life. I'm still not happy. I'm still not at peace. I'm still feeling lonely and isolated. I've seen many people that could be making a lot of money and still feeling like that. And the whole feeling of never being enough. It's almost like you've not learned to be content with what you have. And finding that can be very difficult. So no matter how much money you make, you may still feel trapped because it will never be enough. So, yes.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, just to add to that, I feel like it's never enough. I mean, if you think about it, if you buy a new car, the car will eventually get old. In 10 years' time, even if the car is perfectly fine, you will see these new models, right? Yeah. So this is the psychology of spending the money. And then you tell yourself, oh, my car is, the model is old. I need a new car. Or, for example, when you start building a family, you will buy an apartment. Later on, you tell yourself, oh, the apartment is too small. You need to buy a bigger house, bigger mortgage.
I've been there.
Bigger mortgage, more debts. And then you end up staying in your 9-to-5 job or either in a relationship like you've mentioned earlier, which is not fulfilling, or in a job that's not aligned with who you are, simply because you are so much in debt that you don't see a way of coming out from that. And a lot of that is a mindset, like you've mentioned, because when it comes to like shopping therapy, as they love calling it, you go to buy many things that you don't necessarily need. But because of that external fulfillment, that dopamine that you get at the moment, you feel like you need that. And then you make these wrong choices of spending money that you don't have and putting it on your credit card simply because...
It's an addiction.
it's an addiction, yes.
Yeah, it's an addiction.
But I feel like this is a big problem because people are making these choices in their life about money that are actually keeping them where they are and being stuck in life, being stuck in the wrong relationships, being stuck in jobs that they've outgrown, or being stuck in lives that they don't resonate with. And so when I speak about becoming aligned within with my clients, it's all about successful people that have continuously through the years trying to achieve a better job. They make a lot of money, and yet they're not fulfilled with the life they live. But I wonder, how much do you think of that is a pressure from the society in terms of how life should look like, how much you should have in your bank account? What makes you successful?
I think a lot of it is actually related to what you see around you. I think we're living in a world where, especially with social media, the external validation to people is very important now, because everything you're showing to the world. You have a designer bag, is for the show of people. I think a lot of people are probably either also surrounded, depending on what kind of environment you're in. For example, say if you're living in an expensive area with an expensive house, to you that becomes the norm. You think that is normal now, and then now you need to keep up with that lifestyle with everybody else, even if it's not making you happy, but to be a part of that and to be the part of the norm that you're around, in the environment you're in. There is that constant stress, constant pressure, constant validation that you're seeking from others, that you feel like there is a pressure that you need to keep up. We're living in a world with online, you see people that you always think that are doing better than you. As human nature, we always look at people who are doing better than us, and then it makes you feel like you are behind. I think, whereas we used to all live quiet lives before without it being displayed on camera all the time. It's almost like a reality show. You're showing others, oh, look, so-and-so's got a really nice car. Oh, am I behind with my life? So-and-so's got this many promotions going on. But I say that is a world of illusion. And you've also got to remember there is a life behind it, where people are showing this very curated, amazing life that they have on camera. But, there are struggles behind it, and people may not necessarily display all of that. But I think a lot of what people do and the pressure and the upkeep of the society because of social media has really driven that. I think that's played a really big part in the way people are probably spending their money, again, to seek that validation of having a nicer car, or even things like it never used to be such a big thing. You like cosmetic surgery, this and that. It's all very readily available. Whereas before it would be a billionaire who's a pop star. But now we're doing all of these things because we think that's what people want to see, because that's all you are seeing around you. It's the constant upkeep, the constant pressure, the constant, again, seeking that validation from others that I am good enough, or I am where everybody else is, so I need to keep up with that. Whether that's making people necessarily happy is the question that I always question. That is that actually making you happy, or is it actually stressing you out to keep up with that? Are you genuinely happy within yourself in trying to keep up with everybody and appearances? Is it genuinely giving you that fulfillment that you're looking for? Or is it that you're just trying to keep up, but actually you're really unhappy inside?
And I feel like it always comes down to knowing who you are and what you want from this life. What are your values? Because if you don't know, I would say myself, for many years, I was doing so many different jobs and chasing more money and better titles and this and that. And, when I started actually working on myself in terms of doing more meditation and just understanding more of what my values are, I've realized I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to buy expensive houses. My clothes, I shop in, I'm not going to mention the brands, but in very basic brands. I don't necessarily want to buy expensive car. I don't have one. And I feel like I'm just coming into realization that everything that I was chasing up was never part of my values. Money were never a priority for me. And as a byproduct, because I was chasing money for so long, I literally became burnout. And I had to take different choices on how I want to spend the rest of my life. It doesn't mean that quitting 9 to 5 is the answer. But doing something on the side while you're working 9 to 5 to help yourself escape that, in terms of escape I mean, is finding what's more meaningful for you.
Yeah.
Maybe how to make some income doing something that you love doing, whether, taking a course for something specific. But the external validation, like you said, it's a big thing, and people really struggling, because I see people literally rely on people's behavior, on what they think about themselves.
Yeah.
And the comparison on social media of,
oh gosh, it's a horrible cycle.
It's a cycle that it never ends.
It never
so ends. I feel people will benefit only if they start working on themselves and understanding what is important for me, not what's expected from me, from the society, because if you're surrounded, also who you surround yourself with, because if you're surrounded by people who are playing the game of fake it till you make it, you somehow end up either being with them or against them. So you have to think, do I fit with that networking?
Do I align with those kind of people anymore? Because you outgrow, as I always say, as time goes on, what your values and things you believed in. What I believed in my 20s, and I was probably part of that group of seeking external validation, looking for the next nicest bag where people are going to compliment me on, and I'm going to get this dopamine hit. Someone complimented me on that. But it's taken a lot of work to be comfortable within my own skin and what's important to me, and to change my mindset around that to let go of that kind of mindset and move on. And I finally could say that I've outgrown that. But it's taken a lot of work. It takes a lot of questioning yourself. There's a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness work you need to do to be able to do that, and trying to figure and do self-discovery with yourself. And you have to put in the work to do that. I think a lot of people think that, that naturally comes to people. It doesn't. You have to be willing to put work into doing that and figuring all of that out. And then trying to really understand that, does this really give me that clarity, happiness, peace that I'm looking for? And if it does, then...
So do you see ambitious people chasing more income without actually creating financial freedom?
Oh, definitely. I can say this, that, my example would be, I know plenty of people earning far more money than me, but in terms of how their money and how they spend and the intentions behind that money, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're in a better off position than me. I think if anything, they are constantly chasing this life of, now that I earn more money, and yet now I need to have the next best car, the next best designer bag, the next big house. And the way they spend and the intention behind that money, I don't always necessarily think it gives them that happiness and the financial freedom they think, because trying to keep up with them, that lifestyle never ends. It's this constant, I need the next best thing. So then to do that, I need to earn more money. But behind it all, they might be having burnout. They may not be, their well-being may be affected. They're not necessarily happy, and it's never enough. That dopamine hit of constantly earning extra money, it just never ends. Where do you set the bar and a benchmark and say, this is now enough for me? So, and I've seen a lot of people that make more money will end up spending more of that, don't make intentional choices with that money. And it's just a never-ending cycle that never ends with these sort of people. So yes, the ambition might be there. Or again, it might be something, their relationship with money and how they see money. I just feel that it can be a never-ending cycle that is just never enough.
And do you feel like people that make a lot of money know how to spend money and they have financial education on money?
I think financial literacy is a really big topic now, especially online. You can make a lot of money, but you may not be making financial literate choices. Your spending habits, they might not be great at budgeting. I know some people that make far more money than me, but yet they don't know where their outgoings are, how much money is going out of their bank accounts and what they're paying for, and money that they've been spending on things they didn't even realize was being spent on, because they've never actually stopped to think about, how do I actually manage my money in a way or in a system that works, that's effective, or is saving, or is growing and is working hard for me? Because you can make some really great choices with making little money and making sure that money goes far for you and works hard for you. But you could be in a cycle where you're earning a lot more than someone who's earning less, but because you don't know how to intentionally make that money work for you, you're still in the same position as someone earning less than you. So making financial literate choice is very important. I think a lot of people, just because you make a lot of money, doesn't necessarily mean you are good with money, you're intentional with money, your mindset. And again, it's that behavior. Your relationship with money may not be stable, I call it. It's almost like a regulation, how you spend money. People can have some very bad spending habits. So just because you make more money doesn't necessarily mean you are good with money.
And you know how to
manage
financially
it and effectively manage it.
And then this is one of the reasons why people remain stuck in their 9-to-5 jobs, because they continue seeking more money, more money. They make more money, but they also spend more money, and then it never ends. I come across more and more people that are extremely, unhappy because this is not how they want to spend the rest of their life, but because of the choices that they're making. Or the choices they're not making keeps them where they are. So when do you think the financial education should come from moving forward? Because in the past, the financial education, I feel like it wasn't a very big topic in people's households.
I think a lot of this, I'm definitely starting with my children, my 9-year-old now. I think you have to build that, just the way anything in life, you teach children about things like good behaviors, good manners, all of this. Conversations around money should be even a dinner time conversation you should be having. You should be instilling those kind of behaviors and the kind of education around finance from a very young age. I think instilling those really good habits start very young, I would say. I think schools should be doing a lot more as well. This is not something that, once you are grown up and an adult, you need to now go and figure the world out. Money shouldn't be a taboo topic. We should be talking about it in everyday our lives, how much things cost. I'm very open about it with my children, that this is how much that much is cost. Or sometimes they ask me questions like, why did you buy that? You can afford it. You have got money in your account. I said, just because I can afford it doesn't mean I need to go and buy it. You need to learn how to have discipline with money, teaching how to save. Or just because you've got the money doesn't mean you go and spend it. And a lot of this I think is influenced by the sort of environment you're in your home, in your families, how money's talked about, how you see your family behave with money, how you see them save, how you see them invest. We talk a lot about this openly with my children. I don't think they're too young for any age. I think we should start this young, and I think schools should do a lot more to prepare people for adulthood, because it's not a shock to your system. Because I think what the worry is, suddenly when you're 18, for example, some people inherit money, like you have, I'm doing that, junior ISAs. You might not know what to do with all this money. And you might think, right, I'm going to go on a spending spree because I've never had to deal with all this money. I'm going to go buy myself a flashy car. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go buy the latest phone. But if you were taught from a young age on how to be disciplined with money, how to save money, how to save for something that will be a better quality item rather than the instant dopamine hit, a lot of this does come from, I think, the people around you and what you've been taught. I think it's very important that there is a lot more right now in the current climate that we're living in, a lot more education, whether it's children's books, whether it's your families, just talk about money openly, normalize it, talk about these things. So from a young age, it's not a shock to your system when you become an adult and you have to learn how to budget and learn how to navigate life with all the various bills. I talk about bills openly with my children, and I do like to talk about struggles as well with finances. I don't want it to be as much as I want to give them a security blanket that don't worry about money, I also want to talk to them, actually, we're going to struggle this month with this because we've got these expenses coming up. So I think having these conversations earlier on about finances are very healthy and make it normal, so it's not a shock to their children's systems one day when they grow up.
That's very good. And I feel like every parent should do that because, for example, when I was growing up, I grew up with my mom, and she obviously is a single mom. She was struggling a lot to make an income. So quite a lot of times I've heard, well, we don't have money and this is what it is. There wasn't a conversation much about what are we going to do to be better financially. Is there a financial strategy? Is there a way how maybe, my mom could have potentially started investing, on the side to help herself to never be financially dependent on her 9 to 5 job, for example. And so also I wonder, on energetic level, a lot of parents kind of agree on the fact that they don't have money. And then this is the mindset that they pass to their children. We don't have money and this is what it is, we don't have the money. This is the amount of money I'm making every month, and this is what it is. I feel the mindset could change to bring in more solutions rather than accepting
and explaining
things as they are.
Exactly. I think it's very important that you explain. I always say with children, just giving them a statement, but without actually explaining the reasons behind it, you need to give context behind decisions. And that's what I try to do. For example, I would never just say, well, I can't afford it this month. I'll explain, well, because of due to this commitment and I've got these bills to pay this month, it'll be difficult. However, what we're going to do, the plan would be, we'll save up for this much money for whatever, it's a next car or my double glazing recently. My son was asking, why aren't we spending money, why are we holding back on things? I said, well, the house has been very cold. We moved into a new house. We need double glazing. That's become the priority right now. So what we'll do, we'll save up for that for the next few months, spend on that. That'll be a good investment, means saving money on heating bills. But I explained that. I didn't think, because you're a child, I'm not going to bother. I think we should have these conversations, broaden their minds to these kind of conversations. So they ask questions. There's that curiosity. Let them ask questions. I think a lot of the time you're a busy parent and you just think, I haven't got time to explain to you and you're not going to understand. But you'll be surprised how much children and their minds and the curiosity that they have, if you give them some information, they will come back and ask you questions, and you should nurture that.
Yeah, because being transparent, I feel like it's important. With kids, even if you think they will not understand.
Exactly.
Their brains are like sponges, so everything that you're showing them and discussing with them now, in 20 years, they will find it very useful. Even the small conversations that you thought, actually, I don't think you understand that, so I would not bother. So I feel every mother or every family member, every parent should have these open conversations instead of, we'll be struggling, but we'll not discuss that, And I think that's not going to help the kids to understand how to be financially educated.
Exactly. I mean, I definitely can relate to that, because I remember with my mum growing up, similar to like yourself, she was a single mum of 4 children. But one thing she always did do, she was very open about struggles and what she was doing with that money and how she made that little money go far. I think that stuck with me a lot, and I chose to do the same with my children now when it comes to talking about money. I just want to be very open about it. It's not a taboo topic. We're all here. We're learning things. We're on a journey together as a family. We make decisions together as a family. And you know what? You'll be surprised. Your child may come up with an innovative idea that you may not have thought about as an adult. And as you said, children and their lens in the world, the way they look at things and from their perspective can bring a very fresh idea. So I always say never underestimate the power of the children's mind and how they think. Because we might have been brought up in a certain way and stuck in certain ways because of, how we've, been told this is how you need to behave, this is what you need to do. And then suddenly, a 7, 8-year-old you suddenly have a light bulb moment, like, I did not think of that. That's an amazing idea. So I think it's very important. My mum always was very open about struggles and about money. And I think a lot of my kind of behaviors and how I now am with money is to do with that.
Yeah, very interesting. Now that you said, my mom, although she's been a single, she was a single mom, and we've never kind of had a lot, but she's never been in debt.
Yeah.
How
Same
she's
mama.
calculated every single penny of the small money she was earning every month. We were never left without food on the table. Everything was paid on time. And she always had even money on the side, kind of, for dark days.
Yeah.
So even though there wasn't a lot on education and understanding from me and a lot of conversations, I think through her actions, I saw that, even if you're a single parent, even if you're not earning enough, you can always make a good financial choices.
Exactly.
That will put you in a better situation, or will not put you in the worst situation
Yes.
moving forward. So what did you believe about money back then you no longer believe now?
The money is the ultimate goal, and it brings you happiness. It's the I mean, don't get me wrong. I had that relationship because of the childhood I had, and we saw my mum struggle with money. And for me, it was that security and stability that I was looking for. So yes, I do think it brings you comfort. But after a few years of my life, I was in an unhappy job, and work-life balance wasn't very great. It made me realize that no matter how much money you could be making, it won't necessarily bring me happiness. I had to really figure out what happiness meant to me and what I was really looking for, and how to fulfill my life without involving money. Because I think a lot of the time we think everything is attached to money. That's what I thought. I thought more money will make me happy. But I realized the more I made, I was still not content. It just wasn't ever enough. I think that's what I would say. The cycle of it never being enough. And I think I was looking at money to kind of fill that gap, that void, or something that I had in my life. And it made me realize actually it's not money. I was probably using money as a distraction or some kind of tool to always go get that dopamine hit, whether it's getting a bonus, getting extra money, or buying the next thing that I wanted. But the other things that really made me happy is what I probably didn't realize is just being more present with my family, my friendships, my connections, finding hobbies that I enjoyed and investing in those. But I'd always think, no, I don't want to do that because I need to be busy making more money. I need any spare time I have. I need to be doing the next best thing, applying for more jobs, doing this, but never quite sitting back and looking at what I have and how much of what the things that I already have, what are the things that bring me joy is what I had to figure out.
Yeah.
What are the hobbies that I enjoy? Why do they bring me happiness? Trying to figure out is actually, I used to attach a lot of it to money. And I think that was a very unhealthy cycle that I would think that having more money means I can buy more stuff. And because I can buy more things, that will bring me happiness. And do you know what? It didn't.
It didn't,
Yeah, buying the next latest phone, it will mean actually I'm still looking for the next best phone after that. The next best car, like you mentioned earlier on, it will be still the next best thing. So I try to understand what is it that I'm looking for? What is it that gap or things that fulfill me? I need to find those joys in life that's not attached to money.
Yeah.
So I went through midlife crisis phase recently. Just even things like I used to play the piano years ago, but I kept making excuses. No, I don't want to do that. That's a waste of my time. But actually, if it brings me joy, what's wrong with me investing in that? Why does everything have to be attached to I need to make more money to enjoy my life? I could go and learn a new skill and that will bring me joy, or be an investment within myself. I sounds very basic, but I sewed my own curtains because I wanted to save money, but I was so happy and I felt like such an accomplishment. I made this, I appreciated it a lot more because I knew I spent the time to make it. The appreciation for that curtain, I'm probably never going to replace it because I invested so much time in it, but it brought me so much joy. But something as small as that, or just even being more present with my children, that doesn't involve me necessarily spending a lot more money and doing activities with them. Just doing something for free and just having a conversation with them and just investing time in them. And I've taken a lot of these things for granted. Because for me, money was probably because of the childhood I had and not growing up with much. I started attaching money is the ultimate joy. More money means more happiness. I saw other people around me with more money. I used to think, well, looking at them, they all look really happy. So actually, that's where I need to be. I need to make more money. And do you know, more money doesn't necessarily make you happy. It really doesn't. The well-being, the lifestyle, the burnout it could come with, and the never being enough, it can be a trap.
And it's an interesting mindset because if you think about it, whether you're driving a Golf that cost, I don't know, £2,000 and Mercedes for 50K. they will take you on the same
Exactly.
to the same destination. And of course, I feel like money, it's something that can bring you more comfort.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And money can help you to survive in terms of to buy the necessity, food, water, etc. But funny enough, a couple of days ago, I've made an actual list on how much money realistically I need to live.
Yeah.
And it was half of what I spend at the moment. So if you think about it, a lot of people reaching, and I see so many successful people are quitting the 9 to 5 and they're like, I'm done, I don't want to do that. And then they go to Asia, or I go and they start doing things that, they wanted to do for a long time, but were attached to the money, to the mortgages, to this and that. Because they realize now you don't need thousands of pounds or thousands of money to survive month to month. Your kids will be happy if you buy them decent trainers. They don't have to be designer trainers. I don't have to mention brands. Nor that we need a specific branded clothes. There's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate people that have a good taste for fashion. But what I'm saying is we don't have to depend on making a lot of money to be able to buy these things. Because even if you buy these things, well, guess what? You still feel the same.
Exactly.
Whether you're wearing a trainers for £10 or £100, you will walk exactly the same. They will take you to exactly the same place and you'll feel exactly the same. But the dopamine of thinking, when I get this, I will feel happy.
Exactly.
When I reach this, I will feel happy. And it comes down to, again, being grateful for what we have now.
Exactly.
Having clear understanding of who we are and what we want and what are our values in our life. Like you said, how we want to spend our days. It's not about how many things you're buying to your children. It's about how much time you're spending with them, because they will value the time spent with them, not the money and the things you bought them. So it's great to see how you're coming back to becoming aligned within and looking for things that, I actually forgot how much joy this brings me. And money, you can always make money, but we will not necessarily have a numerous time, free time to do the things that we want to do. So the time is short, and the money, you can make as much as you want, as long as that makes you happy. I think that's
a choice you have to probably make to some extent, that, and do some kind of, again, self-discovery. That for me, definitely, I'm now approaching my 40s. I'm not seeking external validation anymore. So I'm not necessarily trying to keep up with others. And it's taken work to become like this. So it means for me, I don't necessarily want to go buy the next whatever designer bag just so other people are going to compliment me and say, oh, look at you, you've got a very nice bag. Whereas my £5 bag would equally do the same job, carry my things for me. And I am come to a stage where I'm very comfortable with my own skin to be like that, where I know people haven't quite got there yet, because like I said, they may not have had that sort of reflection to even think about that and that mindset. And ask me in my 20s, I was probably one of those, just trying to keep up with everybody else. I did want the designer trainers because everybody else was wearing the designer trainers. But now I'm not afraid to walk in a room and wear my banged up Vauxhall Zafira that I'm driving, because it still gets me A to B. Because I've made other choices where I'd rather be very intentional with that money, what I want to do with that money. And to me, those are the things that I don't value anymore. And you have to really try to figure out, like you said, what is it that you value? And even with your money and spending habits, there's nothing wrong with spending it, but what is it that you really value that you want to intentionally spend on?
So how did you change the way of thinking about reflecting on life, how you want to spend the rest of your life, and not focusing on making a lot of money specifically as the primary goal of?
I think for me, how I want to spend the rest of my life is making memories and having experiences that I can kind of reminisce on later on in life and think, oh, I did that, and I associate a really lovely memory. For example, with my children, I'm not going to remember my designer bag one day when I'm old, if I'm honest. Like, I carried that lovely designer bag. I remember the time I spent with my children or spent on an experience. I don't mind spending money on experience. I went on this amazing holiday with my children, and the memories that were attached to that, the happy smiles that I saw with them, the connections that I built, me being a present parent. Same with my friendships. I'm happy. I don't necessarily have to go out on an expensive meal with my friends. I can just go on a free walk with them. But that connection and those conversations that I have far more value to me. And just checking in with my friends and me and my friends, not necessarily thinking we just have to go on expensive meals because it's Instagrammable. It's building those connections, it's spending time with each other is what I really value. And it took me a lot of time to figure out what was important to me. And to me, families, friendships, a lot of it involved people, and that never cost me anything.
Yeah.
That's what I really value, is spending time with people, because I think when I'm old, those are the memories that I'm going to think about, is the kind of time I spent, me being present, not missing out those really important human connections with people, me being there for people, which doesn't come at a cost, and equally other people there for each other, vice versa, friendships. I think I realized that's what brought me the most happiness. If I had to really sit back and think, what brings me happiness? Is it materialistic things? And a lot of it was aligned more with people around me and my experiences and that I have with those people. And they are there in those memories with me, is what I really, really value and brings me happiness.
So kind of creating memories instead of making money.
Yeah.
It's something that we all should be focusing really more often.
Exactly. I think that's very important to me. And I underestimated how much we take those sort of things for granted. And actually a lot of the things that make me happy are just right there. And I'm trying to chase things that I think are going to bring me happiness. But actually the things that make me happy, are right there, and just to invest in them more. It means just whether it's just me going for a walk with my friend and just having a check-in and having those human connections are very important. For me, the social element is very, very important. That brings me happiness and a lot of joy. And that can be done for free.
Yeah, and you understand what your values are, which is meaningful connections over a lot of money. I guess it's something that you've reflected on. Which it takes time, I feel like, for people to understand and really reflect what is important to me. If someone feels financially overwhelmed, what should they focus on first?
I think first you do need to figure out why you're spending the way you are. I think your psychology behind your money, how you spend, and the behavior with money, you need to try and understand that, are you doing it because actually these are the items I need as a necessity? Or is it just you because it's a comfort thing? It's an emotional spending, because a lot of it's attached to emotions. Are you spending more when you're down? Is it more of a some kind of dopamine hit you're looking for just for a little bit of happiness? So I think first of all, you need to try and figure out why you're spending the way you are, work out your habits. And then the main thing I would say, the most practical thing, is you do have to do a financial audit, a deep dive. If you don't understand where your money is going, it's going to be very hard to control what's going on with your finances. So having that clarity over where you're spending, why you're spending the way you are, what are your fixed costs, what are the necessities, how much you need, how much money you need to actually to live on. I know that seems like an overwhelming task, but it's very important that you do all of that in order to understand the full context and the full picture of your finances, to then make sort of considerations and decisions based on that. So I think that is a step you need to take. But what I will say is, when you do that, I think a lot of people think, oh, you know what, I'm going to have to make this overnight change and everything has to be very dramatic. You start small, make small habits. And I think, you could say something like, okay, I will not deprive myself of completely stopping going out to eat. I can cut back on a few things. Like, I might not need to buy a coffee every day. My big one is I can go out to eat, but I don't necessarily need to buy a drink with that. Because the thing with that is, if you completely go to an extreme of, I'm now not going to go out to eat at all, it might make you miserable. You don't want to shock your system and completely deprive yourself. And then what will end up happening is, you won't be able to stick to that goal because you've set the expectation bar too high in the first place and it's become unachievable. I think you have to create very, very small habits. So, for example, if you knew, okay, I've got this much money going out towards my bills or these fixed costs. I've got these insurances, but actually, do I actually even need this? Or I've just realized I've got all these subscriptions going out. I don't even watch, whatever Netflix and Disney. I've got 5 streaming services here. Do I really need all 5 of them? I can maybe do with one. So that's not you depriving yourself. That's just you really making intentional choices that actually, let's reflect on what is it that I'm actually using. Do I actually need that? I can actually live without that. And how about I give it a trial period and cancelling this? And so I think it's learning, first of all, what you've got going on with like I said, do a deep dive. If you don't understand what's going on, I think it's very difficult to make the decision. And also understanding your habits and why you're spending the way you are is very, very important.
Great. So I'm very curious because you said one of the things to start doing is the first thing is to create an audit.
Yeah.
How would the audit look like for someone, let's say, who has a few credit cards,
Yeah.
overspending every month, maybe some loans here and there, overdrafts,
Yeah.
and it's never on plus at the end of the month, there is nothing saved, for example.
Yeah.
How would the audit look like?
I think for me, even starting on something like a basic spreadsheet, it's very simple. And I mean the most simple thing, you can make notes of, these are all my outgoings. This is how much debt I've got. This is how much my income is. These are all my incoming streams that I've got coming in. And then setting up a plan, a simple plan of, right, where can I make the cutbacks? So like I said, small habits. Where can I make cutbacks? Now, how much money will I need in order to pay off this debt, for example? But again, not saying you could have like a 10K debt. You're not suddenly going to have £10,000 overnight doing that. How can I build a habit where the money that I'm saving, I may save £100 a month by cutting back on this membership, that membership, saving on this much going out to eat, and how I can make sure then I automate that it keeps paying off that credit card debt that I've got, bring that debt down for me. These are the sorts of systems that you have to put in place. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed when they look at the big numbers and they think, I don't even know where to start. You start with small, consistent. Consistency is the key bit, what I always say when it comes to money habits. You could be doing small things, but those small things can add up. You paying off that £100 every month will eventually, at the end of the year, be £1,000 you've taken off that debt.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that you have to do something very big and dramatic in order to see change. It's actually the very small and consistent habits that make the big differences. And what I always say about something like that is it's very important that I've read a book called Atomic Habits, which was really big game changer for me in my gym. And it was about if you make a habit for 2 weeks in a row, that's what really stuck with me. If you can stick to it for those 2 weeks, you're likely to carry on. It's almost like challenging yourself to do that and remind yourself that it's not going to be an overnight thing. You start small. The key is consistency. And same with your money habits. If you've got debts, you're not going to suddenly overnight pay that debt off. But if you create small habits like saving, starting small, saving here and there, making sure that money then is paying off some of that money that you're saving is now going towards intentionally paying off some of your debt, and you create a system that does that, you're more likely to keep up with it and it's achievable. I think a lot of people set the bar really high and they can't achieve it, and then they're demotivated and then they're unlikely to carry on.
Yes. And why do you think a lot of people are in debt? I mean, I don't know about the UK, but it's a big trend in the US where everything is on loans, credit cards. It's almost like spending money. It's not almost like it's spending money that you don't have. Why do you think that's such a big trend?
I think a lot of it is it's peer pressure and the world that we're living in now. And it's all too readily available. It's being plastered everywhere. It's being advertised. Everybody's on their phones constantly. Buy now, pay later. So you think, oh, why not?
Yeah.
I don't have the money, but I'll just pay for it later. It all adds up. You know, how many times are you going to do the buy now, pay later before you know it? You're in a huge amount of debt. And why are you doing it? Again, it's understanding your psychology with money. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Are you doing it because, fair enough, you had bills to pay, but Are you doing it because I needed the next best, latest trainers that came out because everybody's wearing them?
Yeah.
So I'm tempted to go buy that. Before you know it, you've bought 5, 6 different items like that, and it's all added up to a couple of £100. And now you're in this debt that's mounting. And you're not doing anything to clear that debt,
Yeah.
but you keep building on it. And a lot of it is, I think, to do with external validation. The comparison lifestyle that we're living in. We are comparing ourselves constantly, doom scrolling on screens, seeing people with the latest makeup, the latest designer, whatever t-shirt, the latest car, the latest restaurant that everybody's taking the picture against.
Yeah, that's a big
I need
one.
to have that backdrop in the background, so I'm going to go spend money there, yet you're spending it all on your credit cards. And I think, again, this is where you have to learn that discipline, that it's that external validation and the comparison. It will always be there. You have to learn to be comfortable within your own skin and within the means that you have, and learn how to work within those means, rather than constantly thinking that I need to buy more. The upkeep will never end. It's a never-ending horrible cycle.
It's like what they say, live by your means, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people go above that.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who has a few credit cards and has created this habit of spending on credit cards money that they don't have? Anything that you advise them to do before clicking yes on buy now, pay later
I
on the
think every
credit
time
card?
you're about to buy something, ask yourself, do I need it? Is it a necessity? I always say wait 72 hours or even a week. Probation period, I call it.
Okay.
That don't do things, impulsive purchases. I think they're the worst, because you end up regretting it later on. I think you should always have a system in place where you say, right, especially if it's anything over a certain amount, tell yourself, if it's over this amount, I'm going to wait for it and think about it for a couple of days. That's my new rule. It's called a probation period. I have that. And if I then come back to it and think, actually, it's a necessity and I really need it, then I'll buy it. Think about things like, do I already have this? Do I have already something that could already be repaired? Necessarily, it does. A lot of people run and buy something new because something's broken when it could easily be repaired. But again, we would never think of that because everything's so readily available. You just click, buy, and it will come to your door the next day. Are you doing it out of boredom? Are you bored? Because you're bored, you haven't actually got something to keep you distracted. So you thought, I'll just go and just buy something new because the next time I receive that parcel, that instant feeling of happiness and dopamine hit is what you're looking for. So try and figure out, are you buying because of that? Or is it a necessity? Is the item something you really needed? That's what I think you have to figure out every time you're about to make the next purchase. Same with the credit card side of things, that all that debt that you're building up, really try to understand that, is it really going to bring you joy and happiness? Is it really? Or actually, a lot of the time you're adding a lot more stress to your plate. More stuff means, I always say, more stuff means more cleaning, more managing, more items. Where does it end? It's a never-ending cycle.
Okay, so what's one thing everyone should start doing this month for their future self?
I think a lot of people, there is financial literacy around investing. I'm a millennial, so I was taught that, 9-to-5 job, get a really good education, 9-to-5 job is the way. And sadly, I'd like to inform everyone that isn't the case. Just buying a house and the never-ending mortgage. I wish I was taught about investing from a young age, that how you plant a seed and how that grows. That's how investing money is, investing in stocks, investing in shares. I was just told, you save the money, put it in a savings account. I wish I knew more about taking those risks. Obviously, you have to do your research and make those informed decisions. But I think a lot of people hold back because there's the unknown, this sort of people feeling scared, not having that knowledge there. Whereas now you're living in a world where there's, information everywhere online about it. Look around you, do your research, make those informed decisions. And I think if I had to go back and tell myself in my 20s, I wish that even if it just meant just putting £50 a month, even starting small, the key is consistency. If any, the one advice that I would say to people, you should be investing in your future by investing in some kind of stocks, investing in some kind of shares, and that money will grow. The compound interest, the compounding power that you have on that is compared to how much, whether you overpay your mortgage or a high interest rate savings account will be far more greater with investing in stocks. And you've also got to remember, it's a long-term thing. Don't think of it like an, instant win, the instant world that we're living in now, instant gratification. That why have I not seen my £50 making £100 within a few weeks? Think about it long-term. The key thing is consistency. Small amounts put away every month, and think of it, that's my future pot, money box that I'm putting money into, and that money is going to grow. The returns that I get on that, whether it's 8 to 10% annually, and in 10 years' time, how much will that be worth? So I think if I had to say anything to anyone to do one thing today is, don't say that I haven't got enough money. Because I think a lot of people say, I need to make a bit more money to start investing. You don't need a lot of money to start doing it. I think that's a common misconception. A lot of people have been taught only rich people can invest.
Yeah.
No. Anyone could do it. You could be earning £500 a month, but you could be putting £20 aside. And the key thing is, once you start small, your confidence builds. Once you do that, and then you see the money, look, it's growing. I'm making money on this. You'll get a lot more comfortable at taking more risks and start increasing the amount that you contribute towards that. So if the one advice I would give a lot of people today would be definitely look into investing into stocks, shares. The traditional ways of my 9 to 5, my salary will just pay for things, or just putting my money in a savings account, I think is a bit of a dated advice.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the misconception, yes, it's only the rich people can invest. The misconception also, as we are millennials, is to, work hard and save money and leave the money in the bank, and they will just sit there. Thank you for the great conversation today. Thank you for.
I'm glad to be here. I hope any tips that I've given helps people in some way.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Start increasing the amount that you contribute towards that. So if the